3, 2, 1. We're live. Welcome, everybody, to the Kenemy Mind Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, the one and only Mr. Larry Vinette. How are you, Larry?
I'm doing awesome. You?
Amazing. Thanks for coming today. I really appreciate it. So for those of you who don't know who you are, maybe you could just quickly mention, who are you? What are you known for? What are you all about?
My name is Larry Vinette. I am a male. Good to mention now.
You identify as a male?
I identify as a male.
Good man.
I've been in this business of fitness for 35 years. Started off as a coach, transitioned into an athlete. Did pretty good there. Won a couple of world championships, 5 pro cards, whole bunch of national titles. Also coached a lot of bodybuilding athletes, physique athletes in all categories. Made a name for myself there. And recently just transitioned to training executives, the guys that are kind of on the decline in age-wise, but they want to keep firing on all cylinders. So that's what I'm concentrating on now. And transitioned online when COVID hit. Now I'm doing kind of a hybrid thing. I coach people online, but I also travel to people's locations to do all the stuff that I couldn't do online, like all the muscle testing, applied kinesiology, metabolic analytics, structural balance. So it's a level of precision that is more than just, sending photos and looking at people's physiques and then judging what they need from that. So we go into depth, like we go at the root cause of, okay, well, why is your lifts not going up, muscles that are inhibited? There are certain tests you can do to find that out. Because there's no other way than to get tested to find out. Because it's not like, let's say you got a couple of muscles not really firing well that are involved in a squat. It's not like you're going to get under the bar and then the body won't know what to do. You'll still be able to do the squat, but your body's going to compensate with other muscles. So your biomechanics are kind of altered. And the body, as a defense mechanism, will prevent you from gaining any more strength on that particular lift because the conditions just aren't right. There's some missing components. So other muscles are going to compensate to take over the ones that are not working. So the way I explain it to people is like, imagine all the muscles involved in a squat as all the football players on a team. But let's say you got 2 muscles involved in a squat that are not doing their job properly. It's like those players are on the bench and the guys on the field have to work double hard to kind of make up for the 2 missing components. So you're going to be able to play the game, like you're going to get under the bar, you're going to squat, but you're probably not going to win the Super Bowl, right? Yeah. When you bring those players back on the field, you have a better chance of winning the game because everything's going to be working properly. So the body will permit you to do some PRs or, lifts at poundages you've never lifted before.
Sounds good. Yeah, I notice a lot of the time when you go to execute a specific exercise, the sequence in which your muscles fire might be off, right? So you have a movement that ends up being cockeyed and you're limited in your strength because your body's trying to protect itself, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a certain synchronization of muscle contractions involved in the lift. So if they're well synchronized, you progress.
Love it. So let's backtrack a little bit. Give me a quick overview of how your fitness journey started, what inspired you to want to get into the physicality of it all, the working out, eventually the competing, personal training. How did that all evolve? I'm really curious.
How far you want to go back?
Well, that's up to you.
Fitness journey started when I was 12. I kind of got bullied not at school, but in front of my house by this older kid. Saw my dad, saw the whole thing through the window. So when I got into the house, I was kind of pissed on my dad, say, hey, you saw what happened. You didn't come and, save me type of thing. And he just brought me downstairs, gave me a pair of boxing gloves, and we went and got a set of weights, those Weeder do-it-all machines, right? And started working out. And at 12 years old, like you're starting your teenage years, so testosterone is just kind of bumping. So I was basically like a kid on steroids because my hormones were just like surging. I started training at that particular good time. So I made progress pretty quickly. So I was known at school like the kid with the shoulders and the abs, right? And then I got off the weights and started, I was a alpine ski instructor for many years. When snowboarding got invented, I was one of the first guys to get on a snowboard. But back then, you can count on one hand the mountains that would allow you to go up the slopes with a snowboard. So put the weights aside, and then at 18 years old, I broke my ankle twice the same year. My goal was to turn pro. I wanted to be a professional snowboarder. I wanted to go up those mountains on an helicopter and get film going down and then watching it later on, having that, kind of basically wanted to do like my idols did, right? Ride the best mountains and get paid for it. But breaking the same ankle twice the same year was kind of a bummer. And the place I used to work, which was back then the only place where they sold snowboards and skateboards, a place called Footloose Sports, one of the owners had a gym membership at Gold's Gym on St. Catherine Street and Guy in Montreal. And joined the gym to rehab my ankle. And I just took to the weights, started making progress pretty quickly in the gym. And I had no aspirations to become a professional bodybuilder. No way. I had like dreadlocks. I was like a punk kid, right? The skateboard type of, thing. And people were just approaching me at the gym, asking me, hey, you want to write me down your training routine or what you eat? Because you're making quite good progress pretty quickly. I said, sure. And then got a certification. My first certification was the YMCA.
Yeah, it was everybody's.
So got certified as a personal trainer and then started selling programs of like $10 just as a side project. And I just took to it. Like I'm one of those extreme guys that when I get into something, I go like full blast. So started making a business out of it. The place where I used to buy my supplements, they were opening up a gym. So I asked, could I get a job as a coach? I got a certification as a trainer. So they said, sure. So I started working at Arnold's Gym in Brossard. This is back in 1990 or 91 or something. And I was working behind the counter, making milkshakes and showing the basic programs. Then started building a clientele, and then very early on, just started renting out a space. Didn't work for the gym anymore, working for my own brand. And started training people. And then a couple years after doing that, there was a guy training in the gym that was getting ready for a competition. He asked me, are you ever going to compete? I go, I don't know. Never really thought about it. He said, well, I'm preparing for a show. It's in about 6 weeks. I think you should enter. You might do good and maybe win your class. I said, well, I'll sleep on it. Next morning I got up. Why not, right? So I started training for a competition. Which was only 6 weeks. Usually contest prep is minimum 12 weeks, but I was relatively already lean. So did my own thing. I coached myself. I always coached myself and did my first show back in 1994, which was Vallée du Richelieu. And I won my class. I won the overall title and I won the best poser awards. I won every award they could hand out. I even beat the guy that asked me if I wanted to compete.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. First competition, you win everything that has to be won. So I said, cool, let's continue on this path. Took a year off. 95 did another show. 96 I did another show. 97 and so on. Then decided to have kids. So concentrated on family. And then kids were born. And back then, and now we're about 2003, somebody I knew was competing in natural shows. When I started, there was only one competition that was drug tested. All the other competitions were not. So most of the guys competing were using some form of, sports enhancing drug. So he told me, hey, I'm competing in this federation. They do drug testing. I think you do pretty good. I said, well, I'll give it a try. And it was funny because we were at the Sugar Shack. So we ate a whole bunch of sugar. And then he told me about that competition. I said, well, that's be like a kind of an incentive to get back in shape for the summer, right? So trained for that competition, won my class, won the overall, got a pro card.
Amazing.
Then I was invited to do the nationals for that same federation a month later. I did that, placed third, went at it again the next year, won the whole show, won another pro card, then tried another federation, won the national title, won a pro card. So I accumulated 4 pro cards in 4 different federations that do drug testing. So it was natural bodybuilding. And then took a break. Then in 2009, they had the CBBF Nationals in Montreal. So the CBBF is the federation that is amateur that you have to win in order to get your IFBB pro card. The IFBB, for people that don't know, it's the biggest federation. It's the one Arnold Schwarzenegger competed in. It's like the NHL, if you compare it to hockey, of all the federations. So I was pro in 4 other federations, but it's like you're a professional hockey player in some league in Europe. You're not really a professional hockey player unless you're in the NHL, because that's the biggest one, right? So went in and tried for that one. I was able to go straight to the nationals without having to do the regional and the provincials, because I had won 2 world championship titles in 2005, 2006. Yeah, I left that out. Yeah, kind of important. I became a world champion 2005 and again 2006 in the couples category. And because of those titles, I was able to bypass the regional and provincial and go straight to the nationals. Because I just wanted to see how well I would do in a federation where they didn't drug test, so we were allowed to use substances. And just to get a kick out of it, right? How would I place amongst the best in the non-drug tested federations? I ended up placing 3rd. So I'm like, oh, I actually have a shot at this. So I did it 2010, 2011, and 2012. I won it. Won the CBBF National Championship in the Masters category. So at 40 years old, I turned professional in the IFBB. So that makes 5 pro cards. I never researched it, but I think I'm one of the only guys on earth that's got 5 pro cards in 5 different federations. So competed twice in the pro ranks. I knew I wasn't going to be Mr. Olympia, and I didn't want to do all those drugs. I did some sports enhancing drugs to win, but it wasn't like all out like all the other guys. So I just wanted to do a couple of pro shows. And I did good. First pro show in the IBB, I placed 6th. And then second pro show, the last one was in 2016, which was a Vancouver IFBB Pro, and I placed 7th. So I did 2 top 10s. So I was happy, retired, and then just been coaching ever since.
That's a very, very interesting journey. Most people don't have that pedigree, that level of experience and success. So when you speak, you know what you're talking about because you've been there for sure. It's interesting because when I think back to the fitness journey that I had, I remember when I was very, very young watching Commando.
Yeah.
And you see that scene where Arnold Schwarzenegger's got a log and with Alyssa Milano and he's walking and you're like, it's the first time I'd seen muscles like that. And I said, holy crap, what is this? What is this? And then I started reading up on, bodybuilding and weight training and sort of got into it. And I remember when we first started out, there was no internet, there was no YouTube, there was nothing. So I remember as a young guy going to the library and trying to find periodicals on muscle building and fitness training and weightlifting, and there was almost nothing. And then eventually I came across Muscle and Fitness and Flex magazines. And every month I would wait to see my Flex magazine come in because there's such great photos of bodybuilders. And this was back in the 90s when we had, Sean Ray and Flex Wheeler and Kevin Lavroni and all these guys, like very, very high quality.
It was the best era in bodybuilding. And a lot of people agree with that statement. Even today's physiques are not like in the overall, like if you look at the top 10 Mr. Olympia back then compared to the top 10 guys now, they actually had better physiques back in the 90s. More aesthetic. it took kind of a turn when Dorian Yates won the Mr. Olympia. So they went with the mass monsters.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough, when I won my first world championship in 2005, someone in the audience saw me, and this person was Robert Kennedy, who was the publisher-in-chief for Muscle Mag magazine, Oxygen. He had a bunch of other magazines, and he, same kind of pedigree as, Ben and Joe Weider, right? Been there since the Arnold days. And he wanted to start a new magazine with more aesthetic physiques, because he saw Dorian Yates and he didn't really like those physiques. So he approached me and he signed me up for a 3-year exclusivity contract with his magazines, where I got the front cover of the premier issue of Reps magazine. And it was kind of the precursor for the classic bodybuilding category that's very popular now, because the guys are less big, right? Smaller, but more aesthetic, smaller waist, big shoulders. And he thought I represented what he wanted, like the more Frank Zane kind of physiques. So he put me under contract. I did the first cover. I did on the cover on the last encyclopedia of bodybuilding. The guy before me was Arnold, so that's pretty cool honor. And I had my own column in his magazines where people were asking me questions. And back then, if you weren't in the magazines and you didn't win competitions, nobody knew who you were as far as a bodybuilder. Now you can just post a lot of stuff on social media and you're going to be known even though you don't compete. But back in the day, there was no such thing, right? So I was lucky enough to catch the last wave of those magazine covers where, they were a big thing. Now, I don't even, a lot of them went under because everything's online now. So I caught that last wave and I was able to represent the more aesthetic bodybuilders in those magazines, which was quite an honor. And yeah, so.
It's interesting. A great story. When you've been around for a while and you've been reading for 35 years, 40 years, you've been reading on fitness and nutrition, I always find it interesting that something comes up and they make it look like it's a new concept, but it's really not. Like right now, everyone's suddenly interested in creatine monohydrate, which we started taking in the early 90s.
Yep.
Right? There's nothing new under the sun. It's just they rebrand stuff and that's a hot topic for the next little while. And then in a couple of months, it'll be something else.
Yeah.
So the fact that when we were younger, our only sources of information were kind of magazines and guys at the gym. And now there's all kinds of good trainers who are online and bad trainers who are online and people who make all these claims, but secretly they're on steroids or whatever, and they're taking peptides, but you don't know that, right? So you look at what they're selling, the snake oil that they're selling, go, this guy's got good genetics, or he's on something, or he just trains hard or whatever. And then in your mind, you're like, oh, well, if I take this supplement, I'm going to look like this guy. What would you say right now is the biggest trend or thing to look out for that has actual real possibilities for people getting into shape and looking better?
Are you talking about nutrition-wise or training-wise, or?
I would say from a nutrition perspective, maybe even peptides, maybe even different training techniques. I guess what I'm trying to say is right now, what should people be looking out for that's interesting on the frontier, something that has potential in the future to transform how people feel, how they look, fitness level?
Something that has been around for a while is the ketogenic diet. It's been around since the 90s. Still kind of a hot topic now, but we bring that more to the extreme. We get the carnivore diet, which we didn't do before, because that's really extreme, but has a lot of potential. So what I do with my clients most of the time, because I do a lot of testing, and if you see that your insulin sensitivity is not that great, meaning carbohydrates are not really your friend, then a ketogenic or carnivore diet makes sense. So you can do an elimination diet type of thing with the carnivore. Where you start carnivore, something people need to know is that nobody is incompatible with protein, animal protein, like meat. If someone says, I don't digest meat properly, it's not the meat, it's the gut that is disrupted. You don't have enough hydrochloric acid in your gut to assimilate and digest food. So when that happens, the gut sends a signal to the brain and say, don't eat this because it's a burden for my digestive system. But when you restore the hydrochloric content of the acidity of your stomach, you're able to digest and assimilate the protein. The culprits when you feel bad with food is always some form of carbohydrates. And it's not just, chocolate or junk sugar. It could be, broccoli, for some people. So some people are more sensitive to others. So it's a good idea to take out anything that has the potential to cause problems. Inflammation goes away, and then you reintroduce one at a time the foods that you would like in your diet. Know that most people only vary between 7 and 9 different foods on a day-to-day basis. So rarely does someone eat 25 different things in 1 week. So let's say you do X number of weeks only eating animal protein and eggs, let's say, and then you want to reintroduce carbohydrates one at a time, but you want to see if they're compatible with your digestive system. You go one new food per day, and then you see how you felt at the end of the day. Most people are inflamed. Most people have some form of chronic inflammation. So when you're already inflamed and you eat something that gives you inflammation, you're not really going to notice. You have to get away from, take out all the inflammation your body has so that you see the difference, right? So by eating only meat, you're going to flush out a whole bunch of water. Some people lose 10 pounds within a week, right? And then once your body is more apt and better adapted to that, then when you reintroduce carbohydrates one at a time, you're able to see how your body reacts. So at the end of the day, let's say you introduce, apples for an example, then you eat apple all throughout your day with your meat. Then at the end of the day, how did you feel? Did you get brain fog? Did you get a good workout? Were people getting on your nerves? Did you show any signs of inflammation? A trick to find that out is you look at the markings of your socks on your ankles. Because of gravity, you're always going to hold water from the ground up. So if you look at your ankles and your ankles are swollen, then that's one sign to say, well, okay, what I ate is probably giving me a little bit of inflammation. But if you felt great, then that new food is back on your diet. And the next day, you try something else. And then at the end of a week or week and a half, you're able to find out exactly, okay, the foods that I want in my diet, I've tried them out. And I know for a fact that they're compatible with my digestive system because everybody's different. So one might be good for me, might not be good for you. But how do you find that out? Well, take everything out that has a potential to cause problems, then reintroduce and then assess how you feel. And if you felt great, then awesome. What I find is that a lot of people that go through the whole process, a lot of people go back to eating carnivore because of the way they felt. So one thing that people notice pretty early on is better focus, less brain fog, more energy. Like you would associate carbohydrates giving you energy, but carbohydrates give you energy once you get going, right? But it's not going to be like, oh, I'm eating carbohydrates and then all of a sudden, I feel energized. It doesn't work that way. They kind of, whenever you mess with your blood sugar level was up when you eat carbohydrates. Then if you eat the wrong carbohydrates, then it crashes and then you feel worse. And then you want to bring it back up. Then you get that yo-yo thing going, right? When you do carnivore, you stabilize your blood sugar level. So no afternoon crashes. And the really fun part is that you're able to lose a decent amount of fat without having to count calories. So most of the time, well, not most of the time, but every time you want to try and get leaner, you need to be in a caloric deficit. But that is only true if you want to keep carbohydrates in your diet. So any diet, if you're in a caloric deficit, will work. Like you can eat McDonald's and get lean, but it's only going to be one Happy Meal per day, and that's all you're going to eat, right? But on carnivore diet, what I do with my clients is I give them a minimum of meat to eat per day, depending on what their lean muscle mass is. And I tell them, if you want to eat more, go ahead, try it out. And you get to get leaner without having to count calories, without having to deprive yourself of, because I remember when I used to compete for bodybuilding, we used to bring our body fat levels down to 3%. So yeah, we need to be in a caloric deficit to get that low. But in a caloric deficit, you eat a meal, you finish your meal, you might still be hungry, right? You're not satisfied. And then you're like, okay, well, I got to wait 3 hours for my next meal. So you become food obsessed, right? The only thing you think about is food. I can't wait to eat my next meal because I'm hungry. On a carnivore diet, I could get up in the morning, eat 200 grams of steak and 6 eggs, and I'll be good for like 8 hours. I won't be hungry. So I eat 2-3 meals per day. Back then, we were eating like 5-6 meals all the time. So the satiety effect of those carnivore meals where they're high in fat and high in protein just keeps your blood sugar level steady. So and it's so easy. Like, you're going to eat meat anyways on whatever diet, well, unless you do a vegan and you lower your IQ, that's another thing. But if you're going to eat meat, then when you don't have to cook in any veggies or cook any rice or potatoes, it's less time consuming, right?
For sure.
It's easier, and you can eat until you're hungry, until you're not hungry anymore. That's the best part of it.
Part of it
is that you're never starving where all I think about is food. You eat whenever you're hungry. When you're not hungry, you don't eat. I'm hungry again, eat. So you don't have to be on a fixed schedule.
I have mixed feelings about the whole carnivore thing, because as a guy like yourself who eats for purpose more than anything, who's busy, it's very easy. If you say, I can only have eggs and I can only have meat, that's easy. It's just easy, right? So I have a bunch of conflicting thoughts about that. So number one, there's always the argument, if you want to lose weight or gain weight, there's a calories in, calories out model.
Yep.
But I remember Charles Poliquin used to always say, gaining and losing weight is not so much about calories, but a lot of it's related to the profile, the macros of the food you're actually consuming. I remember when I was training with you 15 years ago, doing photo shoots and stuff where I had to get down to 5% body fat. I remember you would measure me every week or every 2 weeks. I remember we were in ketosis. I was in ketosis, didn't call it ketosis, but I knew that's what it was, because it wasn't, people go around talking about keto, but they don't know what it means because it's a thing. But we were doing that a long time ago. Bodybuilders have been doing that forever. So for me, it was great because it was easy. I was doing green vegetables and meat and fish and, let's say, eggs. And you're absolutely right. I noticed that my dependence and my cravings for sugar went way down. I noticed that my ability to concentrate for long periods of time and not have a crash, because I was basically teaching my body how to use fat as a source of energy instead of consuming carbs, using that energy for a short period of time, crashing, then needing more carbs, and your energy is going up and down throughout the day. So I'm totally on board with that. But I just wonder if for the regular everyday person, how likely is the average person able to continue to do carnivore for a long period of time? Then my next question is going to be, how healthy is it in the long run to just do carnivore? Probably the answer is it depends. Probably it depends on you, how your body reacts, which is what you said when you sat down here. But I am very curious. I know a lot of people have done carnivore and they all love it. But I wonder if 5 years later, they'll still be doing it. What do you think about that?
It's not necessarily a long-term thing. It's more of a strategy to find out, once you reintroduce the carbohydrates, which ones are more compatible. There are a lot of benefits from it. Like I said, satiety, you don't get to have to measure everything you eat and all that. So for some people that are very busy, that could be like a good thing for them. People that like to eat, that's another thing. It all depends on what your goal is and how extreme you want to be. So it's not necessarily a long-term thing. It's more like a strategy to find out exactly what you're able to eat and not. But It all depends on if your insulin sensitivity is good or not. If I test you, let's say I do your metabolic analytics and we figure out that insulin is a problem, meaning you don't have good insulin sensitivity, meaning carbohydrates are not your friend, then a keto or carnivore diet would be a good strategy, because most people don't do very well with a high carbohydrate. You just go to any mall or any concert, most people have some weight to lose, right? But not every guy out there is 10 to 12% body fat year round. So if, let's say you're 300 pounds, then chances are you're not doing well with carbohydrates. So ketogenic carnivore diet would be the best strategy for you. But if your insulin sensitivity is great and I take away those carbohydrates, you're not going to be a happy camper because your body can metabolize them.
And you're lacking energy.
And you're going to be lacking energy because your preferred form of fuel is going to be carbohydrates. So if I take them away, you're going to have more carb cravings than someone who doesn't do well with carbs. So that would not be a long-term thing. Like you would just use it to find out which foods are compatible, but you would want to quickly reintroduce the carbohydrates. But doing that strategy, you don't know exactly which carbohydrates are going to be more compatible, depending on, if you're sensitive to phytic acid or oxalates or whatever it may be, right? But it has to do with insulin sensitivity. And when you're on carnivore and keto for a while, your insulin sensitivity gets better. So you have more chances of you being able to metabolize those carbohydrates after doing a medium to long stretch on carnivore. But it depends on your lifestyle, right? Depends. You like to go out eating. Like people say, oh, what am I going to do in a restaurant? Just order a steak. The biggest steak in a restaurant. That's what I do with my executives, right? They go out, business meetings, dinners and all that. I tell them to go get the biggest steak on the menu.
Big fatty steak.
Big ribeye, as big as you can, and eat that.
And eat until you're not hungry anymore.
Eat until you're not hungry.
Telling you I'm full.
Exactly.
So my current thing is that I'll consume carbs once a week, right? So if I have karate on Saturday, typically Friday at noon and Friday supper, I'll have rice or potato. And then I notice on Saturday I have enough energy to fuel my workout. So, I guess you could say I carb cycle, if you will. And generally speaking, most of the week, it's just some kind of protein and some kind of green vegetable, very limited in terms of fruits, limited in terms of any milk, whatever. And I feel good. I feel focused. But the thing that I've been grappling with, and I kind of want your opinion on this, is if you're someone who works out a lot, right? So last night I did 40 kilometers with the boys on fat bike in the snow. Your body's cold, you're consuming calories. Typically on Saturdays, I'll have karate where my heart rate could go up to like almost 200 in the middle of my workout. How do you reconcile the fact that you can consume very low carbs and feel good when you're just doing everyday stuff? Like you're working, you're on the computer, you're doing your chores around the house, whatever you got to do. But then when you start cycling really hard, after an hour and a half and you're sort of losing glycogen, well, you pretty much already lost a lot of glycogen in your muscles, or you're doing like high intensity interval training, whether it's fighting, whether it's bite on your bike, whatever it is, sprint. Are you a proponent of using exogenous ketones, or alternatively, like little gels? Like I experimented with those little gels, like, they'll have carbohydrates, some kind of sugar in them. So half an hour before karate, I'll take a gel. It's got 25 grams of carbs. And then it hits me, gives me a bit of energy. And before I crash, my karate's over. Like I'm trying to figure out, what I'm trying to say is, if you don't have any carbs at all and you're training hard and you're already lean, there comes a point in the week where you're like, oh man, I could use a little bit of carbs.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 or 2 meals, that's it. But in your experience, what's a good formula for carb cycling? Or do you need carbs at all?
It depends on the intensity of your activity. So the more explosiveness you need to be, the more carbohydrates make sense in your diet. If you're only going to do like, let's say zone 2 cardio, and then you have a desk job and you're going to do regular weight training where it's not like super intense,
Demanding, yeah.
then you can get away with just, keto or carnivore. Ketones, exogenous ketones is a good idea then also. It'll give you more kick. But anything that's like kind of really intense, like what you did on the bike in snow, carbohydrates would come in handy.
Yeah, I think you're right. Speaking of exogenous ketones, I do find, so I'm always messing around trying to figure out what's the right thing. So if I went low carb all week, I'm like, I got karate in an hour. I'll take some exogenous ketones an hour, 45 minutes, maybe 30 minutes before. I'll take one of those little gels and see what happens. If you eat too much, you'll throw up. If you take one of these little gels, I'm experimenting with it. So my current thinking is that the carbs in limited quantity, because here's the other thing. If I have more than 2 meals of carbs, I feel like my body's starting to like carbs too much. It's like it's forgotten that I went all week with no carbs and it was good. So I find that you got to really narrow down your window for carb consumption. That's my experience. If you want to stay lean and you want to have abs. What sucks is that you go to a restaurant with your wife or your family and everyone's eating cake because it's someone's birthday and you're like the odd man out. It's just weird. It's fine, but it's a bit of an adjustment you have to make, right?
Yeah, I mean, to each his own. Like if you get the peer pressure from, oh, come on, just one piece of cake, right? Just like, well, you're already lean. Come on, you can handle it.
Yeah.
If you're able to just eat one piece of cake and then you're good, then great, right? What I say to my clients is that if ever you're going to cheat, don't cheat just because it's Friday night. Cheat when you're invited somewhere, people went out of their way to cook food for you. You don't want to be that guy showing up with your Tupperware chicken breast and broccoli, right? Don't be that guy.
Yeah.
So have that permissive meal, right? Mm-hmm. But if that permissive meal will make you go off track and then it'll end up being 3 days in a row where you're eating cake, then that's not a good strategy. So it all depends if you have enough self-control to just say, okay, I'm just going to have this one meal and then that'll be it, right? And if they offer you, hey, bring some cake home, just say, no, that's fine. Keep it. So it all depends on your personality. Mm-hmm. But just make it worth your while, right? So on occasions, a birthday, it's Christmas, right? But not because it's Friday night, I'm bored, I'm watching, or it's, Sunday football and then, okay, I'll eat some nachos. That's just a habit, right? And people kind of fall into those habits. And then they don't even think about it. It's like automatic, right?
Yeah.
Be aware of what you're putting in your mouth, right? Nobody's twisting your arm to do it.
No.
So you got to have self-control. It's a question of love, right? What do you love most? Being in shape and being healthy or satisfying your taste buds for like a couple of minutes?
I'm with you, man. I always tell people like, the taste of cake isn't as good as the feeling of having abs.
I love bread. I love a croissant. I love all that. A burger. I love it. I don't have it. I'll have it a couple of times a year.
Yeah.
But, when it's, I just have to have, no, you don't have to have it.
No, you don't have
right? You don't have to. You want it and that's it. But what do you want more? Like Charles Poliquin wrote this article called Discipline, the Myth. No, Discipline is a Myth. And that was the whole message behind it. It's a question of love. It's not discipline. It's just, if you want to eat donuts, you're just telling the whole universe that you prefer donuts over having abs.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But don't go complain. Doesn't make a bad person, but don't go complain that you can't get abs. If you're able to.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, so rapid fire questions. Is training on an empty stomach, i.e. fasted, bad for your brain or a great way to lose fat?
You want to burn more fat. Let's say you train first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, but your last meal at the night before, you had some carbohydrates. Your glycogen reserves are going to be full for your workout the next morning. It's not like you're going to burn all the carbohydrates you ate during the night, right? Although you do burn some energy during the night, but it's not going to deplete your glycogen stores. So the thing with training in the morning, it starts the day really good because you're stimulating your nervous system. Cortisol is naturally high in the morning, which is an energy mobilizer. So it makes sense to work out when you're mobilizing energy. And a lot of people, when they train later in the day, it stimulates their nervous system too much, so they have a hard time falling asleep. So training in the morning, it kind of gets it out of the way. If you have carbohydrates in your diet, then the carbohydrate the day before will fuel your workout in the morning. So I like the idea of training early in the morning. I didn't used to think like that. Because Charles, you always used to tell us, eat. Then, because Charles, if Charles wouldn't eat in the morning, he would commit murder like a couple of hours later. So he had to have his food. I'm not particularly hungry in the morning. I'll usually get up and have my first meal maybe 4 or 5 hours after waking up. I'm very productive in the morning, and I find myself more productive on an empty stomach. I'll just grab, coffee with some mushrooms in it, and I'm good to go. But it just gets it out of the way. It won't burn fat more. Even if you do fasted cardio, you're not really going to tap into your fat stores faster because you didn't have carbohydrates. It doesn't really work that way. But just the idea of making sure that it's done instead of having all the excuses in the world during the day to not do the workout in the evening. Oh, I had a hard day, or I'm too stressed, or whatever. Get it out of the way. Do it. Get about your day. It starts the day right. And, you're getting it done. That's the whole idea. Get it done.
Love it. So let's talk about cardio, that famous topic that we always go back and forth on. I know for a fact that you don't require cardio to be lean. If you want to be ripped, it's very simple. It's diet and lifting weights. Okay? Yep. For body composition. And I've gone from both extremes. So when I was younger, I did lots of cardio. Then I noticed I was burning a lot of muscle. Then I went exclusively on the weights, and I looked amazing. I was super lean. I was jacked. But, don't ask me to run 2 miles in X number of minutes, because I just couldn't. Then I got back into the martial arts, and now I'm sort of doing a bit of both. Right? So I'm going somewhere with this. So I'll do martial arts twice a week. Mm-hmm. I'll lift 3 times a week, and I'll do like a super long cardio session on biking maybe once a week. I guess what I want to say is that I always feel better when I do a certain amount of cardio, especially interval training. Charles Poliquin was not a big fan of sustained cardio, even zone 2 cardio.
He hated it.
What is your perspective on cardio from a health perspective and a performance perspective, which may be 2 different things?